I'll get it eventually.
Does it help if I don't look? I can
I'm
turn
not
my
even
I
looking at you. This will be the intro where it's just us like fucking up. But hello, ladies and gentlemen, and all you heathens out there. This is Britton Stepetic, and welcome to Low Key Legends, where I am honored and humbled to be able to speak with some of the most creative people in the world. Today, my guest is Libby Connolly. Libby is a Chicago-based creative director, building visual, captivating, emotional, resident brands under her namesake practice, Studio Libby Connolly. As a strategic and creative partner, she aims to seamlessly combine vision, business objectives, and artful storytelling to help heart-led founders and their brands connect meaningfully with their people. With nearly a decade of experience, she's had the pleasure of collaborating with brands of all sizes, from local Chicago favorites like Ivy Hall to renowned giants like Apple. Throughout her experience, she's discovered that her true passion lies in working with entrepreneurial spirits, conscious consumers, and socially responsible individuals who have absolutely zero interest in the status quo. Her
definitely.
expertise extends beyond aesthetics as she deeply understands the importance of aligning a brand's purpose and values with its creative expression. With a keen eye for detail and an intuitive understanding of brand psychology, her goal is to create a visually captivating identities and emotive brand experiences that delight the senses, spark wonder, and push boundaries. Welcome, Libby Connolly.
Oh, thank you for having me. Wow, what an intro. That was like it's so yeah. Wow, I feel great. Thank you.
Oh yeah, well, nothing like having your bio read poorly to you to really get you going in the morning.
Yeah. Actually, good feedback. It helps me. I'm like, oh wow, that was kind of wordy. I should tweak that. So great. Thanks for the yeah, real time feedback. I appreciate it.
I think my bio is just like Britton Stepetic is the founder of Rogue Studio and he likes coffee, something like that. But
But like simple is key. Simple is key though, you know. That resonates with a lot of people. They're like, "Oh yeah, I get that. I can latch on to that for sure."
I thought we could start with the power of change and changing your space. You currently moved from Portland, Maine to Chicago, and I'm really curious about the impact of the move, what caused your move, and ultimately how that affects your perception of design and the work that you're doing, and if you feel that it has impacted your work on some dynamic level at all.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I think for background context, yeah, I was in Portland, Maine for the last maybe 11 years. I'm originally from Maine. I grew up in Kennebunk, a small town outside of Portland. And for a while, I had been contemplating a big move. Although I love Portland and really fostered a pretty spectacular community there, I felt I was, I guess, kind of reaching the ceiling in terms of how my career could grow, how I could grow, and I had just kind of, gotten everything I could get out of that place for that time in my life. And so choosing to move to Chicago, it just felt like there was so much room to grow, so much opportunity, and moving to a place where I knew little to no people
Mm,
would really put myself in a position to like experience that. I guess I call it like good discomfort, right? Like
mhm.
almost kind of putting yourself back in that beginner role again really forces you to put yourself out there, try to make new friends, meet new people in your community, establish community. And yeah, from a work perspective, I feel like things really have transformed quite a bit since I've moved here. And without me thinking that they would, I guess, has been the interesting part of it all.
I had a similar experience when moving to Brooklyn from Boston because it is
Hmm.
a very big culture shift,
Hmm.
and Boston's very technical, medical. Obviously, they
Hmm.
have a huge sports scene, uh, but Brooklyn is kind of like we don't give a fuck who you are, and
Yeah.
as long as you're chill, you can be here. Um, but like then there's the also like the very like local born bred in Brooklyn scene, and they're like very much like you haven't been born here, you're not part of this community. So it's a
Hmm.
interesting dichotomy, and obviously New York is New York, Brooklyn's Brooklyn, and there is an energy about it. So I was curious if like being in Chicago kind of influenced your art. I know you haven't been there too long, but if you feel energetically renewed from the experience of moving.
Definitely. Yeah. I think kind of so much of the inspiration I get for my work really comes from traveling and visiting new places. And so to completely uproot and move to a new city, I feel like I've had so much energy to explore like new concepts creatively, maybe not even in my creative practice, but it just opens up so many doors that you had no idea even existed for yourself, I think, in that sense. Um,
I I would agree, not to cut you off. Like when
yeah.
I moved to Brooklyn is when I kind of launched the first Rogue site. And it's
Hmm.
really fitting because we just launched the new one yesterday, and I have moved now to Cape Cod, and I've been kind of in a beach town for I guess a little over 6 months. And I
Hmm.
feel like the vibe is very different. Like the first one was very like rigid and kind of a little bit not grungy, but kind of like grungy tall letters. It felt like Brooklyn. And this new
Hmm.
one, like a new blending of like a little bit of edgy, but like a lot more chill. As you can see, I'm like wearing like a
Yeah.
safari shirt and I have like
Yeah.
color, and the new site is colorful and a lot more chill and
Hmm.
low key in general. So I feel like it is like an energetic shift being in a place itself.
Yeah. Oh,
And
completely.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's weird. How
you've got the safari shirt on, you've got like the wave photo in the background. Like, yeah, it's like the environment in which you live and the pace of life, that environment that sort of naturally holds totally influences you in ways we almost swapped, right?
Mm,
Like
mhm,
I left Portland, which a small city, but still definitely a slower pace compared to other cities in the world, and then moved to Chicago, much bigger city, much bigger city. Um, I definitely noticed the shift in pace, but it's that energy, I think, that yeah, like it drives you, or it's almost like it's pushing you, and you see everyone is kind of there with intention to like keep
mhm.
going or move forward, and so you're like, oh, okay, I gotta get on board too, like that looks like fun. Versus, yeah, much a slower paced living environment, I feel like you almost inherently adopt just like a different mentality, and like you start to approach your work differently. Completely, yeah, I completely agree with that.
What was your favorite thing about Portland, and what would you say your favorite thing about Chicago is currently?
Oh, great question. I want to say my favorite thing about Portland, it's got to be probably a mix of the creative community and the I feel like the food and beverage scene. There's so many like great little restaurants and bars. Um, it's basically on a
Is it
hill like
like a coffee
right on
break?
the water. Yeah, yeah. I got mine here.
Oh, beautiful. Oh,
Yeah,
actually, you're repping Portland with a Bissell
I
Brothers.
am. Yeah, Bissell
Yeah.
Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
The timing, right?
Yeah, right?
But it's got so yeah, Portland has so many breweries. Um, it really is a great little city for I guess people our age, what in their late 20s, early 30s.
Hmm.
Um, it's cute, it's quiet, but there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot to explore and see. Gosh, and I guess versus Chicago, in ways they feel similar, in terms of I guess like the personality of people. Everyone is very welcoming, very down for whatever. And there's so much there. I thought I was spoiled in Portland with the food and restaurant scene, and then moving here, I'm like, wow, I will
Yeah.
never experience it all. There's so much to do, um, and I love that. I'm a pretty um, I guess, active person. I always like to be doing something, exploring something, and so it feels like a really good fit for that.
I was only in Chicago for a few days, but the way that I would always kind of like characterize it is if Boston was bigger,
Mm.
more neighborhood focused and cooler, which is really rude, which is super rude. I love Boston. I'm Northeast kind of like stubborn and hardcore, but
Mhm,
uh I thought the neighborhoods were so like dynamic in Chicago where
mhm.
like they would change and have like their unique characteristics to them and like the food scene would change and there was so much random stuff going on like from like little festivals to street fairs. It's like
Mhm.
summer pops off in Chicago. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is true. I think part of me didn't want to believe it. People kept telling me like, "Oh, just wait for summer." I'm like, "Yeah, I get it. Everyone loves summer. If you if you, if you grow up in a cold climate like
Yeah.
we both have, like, yeah, winter's brutal, so you really appreciate the summer
Mhm.
months." But yeah, it's true. There are like 10 festivals every weekend. You can go and jump in the lake early in the morning. Like, yeah, there's so much to do. You could never be bored in the summer.
It's perfect that they do have the lake, maybe not in wintertime with the lake effect snow and
Yeah.
wind, but like it's nice kind of like not losing a sense of like the water or a connection to the water coming from
Mhm.
like the East Coast. So it you have your, Great Lake, your ocean to do all of the things water and
Mhm.
aquatic oriented and actually have beaches, even if it's like the manufactured little beaches that they put on like the edge of the
Yeah.
city, there's still
Mhm.
so much.
Oh, yeah. That was big for me too. Coming from a coastal town, coastal city, that was a big concern of mine. Was like, oh man, how am I gonna, what's it gonna be like? Am I gonna like lose that part of my identity, like growing up in a coastal town? But it's just like the ocean. It's so similar. And I'm not too far from the lake. I live in West Town, which is, I guess, West Town, like Logan Square is kind of like the Brooklyn of
Mm, okay.
Chicago. Um, and it's like a 20-minute drive. It's not far at all. And so to have that still feels like, okay, cool. I can still have my beach and not feel like my identity crisis in that respect.
Honestly, that would be. It's just like I couldn't imagine like moving from like a coastal town to a place with no lakes or ocean or water at all and just being
Yeah,
landlocked. That sounds
yeah.
like a micro, maybe an internal death sentence in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I know. The one thing though, I mean, Chicago is very flat, as we
Mm,
know. The Midwest is a pretty flat place. I do miss the mountains. That was something that
mm,
I love hiking. I love getting outside, and that's been an adjustment. But it just means, planning trips, whether that's like driving out of state or like planning a bigger trip where you fly somewhere and then make a plan to like go hiking and really sightseeing in that respect.
yeah, definitely. And have you found that you get more inspiration from being like out with nature or kind of frolicking in the city? Because I think it goes different ways for different people, and it's okay if like
Hmm.
the answer is like, why not both?
Yeah, I think both, but in different ways. So
Mm,
I think when I'm like out walking in the city, I mean, like seeing all of the like signage and like murals that are just painted all over, that gets you thinking a different way. Like you'll see little glimpses and you're like, oh, I like how they did that. Or like, oh, I like how like that letter on that sign curves the way that it does. Versus I think when I'm out in nature, it's a nice pause. And when I'm out in nature, I feel like I can really give my head the space to wander
mm,
more. Whereas, right, like you're not being, God, how do I say this? You're not being like bombarded with so much information all at once. It's like such a clean slate that maybe like subconsciously you've had thoughts about something, and then when I'm in nature, it's almost like, oh, here, they're all kind of coming back, and now let's make sense of them, and then like let's do something with it.
mm.
So in ways like, a weekend away, to recharge, to like explore those kind of like concepts that have kind of been in the back of your mind. Then when I come back, I'm like ready to go. Like I feel like
Mm.
I have so much momentum to just like, oh, let's try this and try that and like see if that sticks. You know, it's almost like a spring, like a launch pad or like a springboard for new ideas.
This is probably why we vibe, because we're both like, we like similar things, but we're
Hmm.
always working on something. And especially you, Libby, where you always have like a back burner project or like
Mm,
something that you just create. Um, well, what does a typical day look like for you? Where do you find the time between client work and passion projects?
hmm.
And what what kind of is the driving force behind a lot of like the passion projects that you do work on?
Oh, good questions. I think when it comes to time, honestly, it can be really seasonal for me sometimes. And if I'm in a busy season, I just accept like, okay, I'm not really going to get to this right now, but I'm sure as you know, like it ebbs and flows. There are slower seasons, there are busier seasons. And so in those slow seasons, that I kind of go all in. Um, I guess like some of the inspiration for that is, or the projects that I self-direct myself are really just brands that I want to work on selfishly, but they
Mhm.
just haven't come my way yet. So I, kind of give myself a brief. I'm like, all right, I want to work on this kind of brand. I kind of want it to look this way, like speak to this type of person. Okay, what does that look like? Go. And those end up being some of the most fulfilling projects, even though, like they're not paid, they're not by any means like with an actual client. I will still often get people, prospective clients or other creatives reaching out and being like, wow, what a cool project. Like, how did that come along? I'm like, it's fake. I made it up like
Yeah.
that. And but to that point, like the passion projects oftentimes bring in the really cool project that you want because people can really see you're passionate about it, like you were all in, like it's something that you really loved and are really interested in. That's contagious. Like that makes people notice. And yeah, I guess that's been my strategy kind of since going freelance or going independent
Hmm.
was like you got to make the work you want to work on. Otherwise, the work you're showing, if you're not excited about it, no one else is going to be excited about it either.
Yeah, and that's a huge tip for anyone listening, is that you can create your own work. You don't have to wait for permission or the right client to come along. I think most of us kind of got most of our freelance projects from either being full-time at an agency and then just doing work on the side, and then things
Hmm.
just came in, and just making that bold, daring leap to kind of plunge into this unknown. And it's very unknown, probably especially in the last like 5 years. I don't know, maybe it's always this unknown, but with
Yeah.
the birth of like a million new technologies, AI, and I don't know, whatever the Twitter plus all the other bullshit in the tech industry right now. um, I just wanted to take a minute to compliment you and other freelancers and studios out there, kind of making it through like a global pandemic,
Mm.
whatever we're in now. I'll call it like a weird technology cycle. And so a recession, uh, whatever. And so just like amazing job there. And
Oh,
just
thank
taking
you.
the initiative to jump on like your latest packaging project. I thought that one came out incredible. And we'll put up like all the images and work so that if you are watching on the video version, you can see and share along with us. But yeah, I mean that's incredible in general to make it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I appreciate you. It's so good to hear. I mean, I'm sure like it's really easy to get in your own head sometimes about that stuff. And yeah, it feels like there has never been a time that's been more uncertain,
Mm.
especially as a creative. I feel like I'm hearing left and right, like, oh, I got laid off, or yeah, like everything with like the tech industry and, funding in the Bay Area is not the same, never going to be the same as it used to be. It's just, yeah, it's very uncertain, but you kind of just have to keep going and trust that what you're doing, you're meant to be doing if you really feel that. And I think for me, a big theme this year has been like, okay, what's not working? What needs to pivot? What needs to change?
Hmm.
It kind of is a constant like reassessing of where you're at and where the world is at, and recognizing, okay, I need to adapt, or this is not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, the constant need to change is one big one, and kind of analyzing maybe like your internal skills, your physical skills, what you do best, and kind of
Hmm.
making a hard decision to go into one direction versus like all directions. And I think that's like a big one. Like if you need to specialize, you should specialize. If And that's just kind of like data driven. If you're like, oh,
Hmm.
75% of my projects are branding and they're this type of client, like there could be just a need in the market that you can fill with like your specific talents.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how you feel about niching, how you feel about creatives niching. I feel like this topic has come up a lot in conversations I've had with people, and I'm not against it. However, I've never felt strongly that I need to niche so
Mm,
far that I'm only serving a very specific type of client. I think maybe that also just comes from me feeling fulfilled by a variety of
mm.
either type of product or service based clients. Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts there because I know this is like always a back and forth discussion with people.
I think about this a lot. So, I mean, I think Rogue Studio, we do two things. We do branding and we translate those brands to digital design.
Hmm.
So basically, in layman's terms, we do brands and digital experiences or websites, but the mindset of the client is really what we're trying to hone in on and really try to find. And it's this client who knows that they need to change something. It's either that they have a original product or they have a brand or a product that needs to like radically transition. So
Hmm.
that's the type of person that we attract. And it usually comes across as they're looking to use design as a way to get to a final destination, whether it's like a brand or a product, in order
Hmm.
to attain some sort of status in a
Hmm.
marketplace. So, for example, the latest brand that we did for Lens, which was like a digital publication, they
Hmm.
were looking to transform their brand to attract a market of kind of like technical people and creatives and other people like us. So it was an easy kind of project to get into that mind space. But really, like the end deliverable was a brand that the company thought was like badass, and also appealed to that target audience. So like that's a
Hmm.
really fun project to be in, and that's what we really focus on. We have a project coming out that's like this digital storybook, and the client was looking to kind of take all of these kind of paintings and music and art that he had made and squish it all together into some package that kind of contained itself and could be put out into the world. So
Hmm.
it is a lot of like, how the hell do we do this thing? I don't understand, but I know it needs to be cool. Can you help? Like,
Hmm.
and so that's not like a market, but that's a mindset. And
Hmm.
I think we attract that because we make so much random work and try to put out that. And the copywriting that I do for the marketing material is very trying to be like aspirational opposed to like salesy. Like I think the point of niching is that you can very much easily target a specific market super easy. So if you know you're looking for men in Chicago who are 6'7" and love hats, you could probably do that real easy. But
Yeah, yeah. No,
every
I love that you say that though, that it's more of a mindset. I feel a very similar way about the type of clients that I attract to, where the common threads really seem to be, yeah, more in like, okay, I mean, design is always solving a problem.
Mhm.
And typically for me, that problem is, yeah, wanting to either maintain a status or, as a challenger brand, as a startup, like wanting to really like make a name for themselves pretty early on with kind of status driven. um, but also I use words like heart led, like, wanting to add good to the world,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. Not, we are all in the business to make money, but but I like to work with people whose values align with mine. At the end of the day, that's important to me. So I know that my efforts are going towards the greater good and not, just lining somebody's pockets.
And the brands that you work with are also really cool, and the brands that you produce like are very like I'm not going to say like trendy or but they're definitely in vogue. They're like beautiful and
Mm,
unique and different, and that comes from like I feel like a myriad of your internal interests within like fashion and like the cannabis culture from other projects that I've seen you do. Uh, if there were a way to describe the vibe of Studio Libby Connolly, what would that vibe be? In like
oh
let's
my
say like
gosh,
5 words or so.
5 words. That is so hard. It's so hard to put to flip the mirror on yourself. I feel like I've been trying to figure that out, honestly. But I really like how you said what in vogue. That's a compliment. Thank you.
That's a compliment.
I love that. I've never heard that. Oh
Yeah, like
gosh.
it's super like so here's how I would describe it. It's
Mm,
elegant. It
mm,
like has this like element of class, but also quirk. Like I don't mean like
mm-hmm,
it's like weird and quirky. I mean like it's like different. It's like, oh, I've seen something like that, but not like this. And I think
mm,
that
mm-hmm.
is how I would describe it.
I love that. I mean, honestly, that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Mm,
So I'm glad that it's received that way. Yeah, I think, I mean, so much of my influence just comes from, yeah, like the world around me and I guess my interests. I think maybe why I do attract and want to work with product-based businesses. Like I love interacting with really nice considered home goods or, like a really beautifully packaged like candy or cookie, like
mhm,
if you're like shopping around. Um or gosh, what else? Yeah, like a really nice but not, I've never gravitated towards, like the really high-end luxury goods, but I appreciate the detail of a really well-designed object.
mhm.
I think those are the types of projects that I really enjoy working on because I am usually the target audience. So it's almost, in a way, it's easier for me to, can easily put myself in the shoes of the end user or consumer and be like, oh, well, this is what I would want. And so it makes the brief that much easier for me, I think.
No, I love that. I wanted to flip the script a little bit, and you had asked me a question in the questionnaire that I send out, and it was a beautiful question, and it's something that we all should be thinking about. But the question that you asked was, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And
Mm.
I, you, before we started recording, you were in the process of thinking of it. So do you still need a little bit of time? Because I can go first if you do.
I'd love to hear your answer. I
Okay.
have one in the back of my mind, so I'd love to hear yours.
Okay. I could do a bullshit cop out and be like, I started a podcast, but that's stupid. I'm not going to do that because I actually have a very good answer that I think that you will like in particular.
Okay.
Um, so I think it was like around like a month ago. I took a small trip to Nantucket with my wife, and we were excited to go because she was just about to start a 20 show run of Hello Dolly that she's in.
Mhm,
Um, and basically, she was going from like working because she's the director of theater education at the Cape Playhouse. So she's doing the children's theater program during the day. And then she
mhm,
comes home, eats food, and then runs and does a production at night. So we knew we were going to have no time together. So we took
mhm,
a short trip. And when we were on Nantucket, we took a surf class. And
mhm,
I feel like it was a radically transformative experience for me. And my wife loved it too, but I felt so zen and so like in tuned with nature because I was just out there on the in the water, on the water, and just looking for like the perfect wave and just having it glide you into shore was
Hmm.
incredible. Like riding on a wave and kind of just not doing anything. There's no mechanical components. It's like a piece of wood and you. And like, yes, I had a
Yeah.
wetsuit because the water was like 60 degrees at the time, but that's actually not even that bad. Like you could do that without a wetsuit, but I didn't feel like being a tryhard. Um,
Or getting hypothermia, you know.
yeah, whatever came first. But I thought it was so like freeing because you can't think about anything else. You're just looking for the wave and trying to
Hmm.
know when to paddle. And luckily, I
Hmm.
had like a teacher right there to kind of like guide me and my wife through it, so we could just like kind of just go at it. But getting up on the board, thinking about nothing else, no technology involved, just
Hmm.
enjoying like being out there and doing an activity was amazing. So I'm definitely interested to do it more and to really kind of like adopt that as a hobby
Hmm.
in the near future. But yeah, that was the last time I did something for the first time.
Wow, that is so okay. When you were describing like the act of surfing, the act of like learning how to surf, like finding a like noticing when a wave is coming and then intuiting like, okay, I need to start paddling now so that this can take me into shore. Like what a like poetic way to describe life was like immediately what came to mind because that is it in essence, right? Of like
Mhm.
you you train yourself to look for the wave and then you prepare to paddle and then like you just take it as far as you can until the next wave comes
Mhm.
or then you paddle back and then the next wave
Yeah.
comes and life is so like cyclical like that. I just yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, wow, that just spoke to me. I love that.
Maybe that's why it's like so many like surfers or like poets or creatives or maybe it's just like people in like all crazy different industries are gravitate towards it because of that same feeling and that
Hmm.
connection to it. It is very poetic in that way. It's like a little bit of like a dance with nature and
Hmm.
yourself and that kind of like almost like tai chi in a way where you're trying to get to kind of a spiritual level but on a physical plane. And I know that's very like heady, but that's I guess how I've been
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm very much within that mindset too. And it's the more you try to force it, the more you're gonna just find yourself doggy paddling and like, struggling to reach the surface because you're not in the flow of it. You
Mm,
need to just learn to like let go and just be there and be present sometimes.
hell yeah.
Yeah.
That may be like the pre kind of like thing like the beautiful
Yeah.
takeaway message at the beginning here.
Yeah. I love that. Oh my gosh, that's been such a theme for me this year though. I think moving to a new place, yeah, like sitting in that discomfort of, I guess, like reacquainting yourself. It's almost like you meet a new version of yourself in a
Mm,
new place because it asks different things of you. And the letting go and like letting it flow can be
mm,
tough sometimes. Like when you kind of have this preconceived notion or expectation of like, okay, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. It's going to happen at this time.
mhm.
That I can struggle with that from time to time. And yeah, the letting go and let flow is a good reminder.
Have have you found that you've been able to kind of like try new things or get out of like your comfort zone to try and like meet new people having just moved to Chicago? I don't know if you knew
Hmm.
anyone there before, but it's always like hard to make friends as an adult. So I was curious if you had any
Yeah.
tips.
Yeah. So my two best friends moved here about 6 months before I did, and they
Right.
kind of sold me on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was to have that buffer, to have a level of familiarity felt really important too.
Mm,
Um, so that was helpful, honestly. So the first couple friends that I've made since being here, one of whom, my friend Mackenzie, she's also a designer. We followed each other on Instagram, and I think I had made a post like, "Oh, like, the studio moved to Chicago, like, excited to, make new connections, meet new people, see what's next for me." And she ended up reaching out, and we got, like, we went to this wine bar and just got a
Mm,
glass of wine one night, and we've been friends ever since. Yeah, making friends as an adult can really be that simple. Um, and I guess going back to like, maybe you have to be a bit more intentional of like, okay, do we have some common interest?
yeah.
And I think the fact that she was also a designer was like, oh yeah, we're clearly going to have things to talk about. Like we're in the same industry, same business. And I've since met people through her. I also was pretty diligent in, so I'm on this platform, Working Not Working. Are you familiar with it?
Working, not working?
Working
Yeah.
Not Working.
I have
I
a
guess,
profile that's dead.
yeah, but kind of like I guess like a portfolio site, job
Hmm.
board slash portfolio site. Um, literally just looked for Chicago-based creatives, and
Hmm.
I found a few that work I really admired, and I basically just cold outreached. It's like, hey, I found you on Working Not Working. I just moved here. Do you want to grab a coffee sometime? And
Hmm.
uh, you'd be surprised like how many people say yes. So you never know. Like I would say, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. The worst is they either won't respond, they'll say no, or you meet in person, you're like, oh, that wasn't quite it. But
Yeah.
there's always the next one, There's always like
Hmm.
you will find your people. You do have to kind of be willing to search though.
Yeah, it's it's kind of the act of just doing it and being okay
Hmm.
with whatever the outcome is. I feel like
Hmm.
honestly, everyone that's probably going to be coming on this show has been just like randomly reaching out and just making like a connection either
Hmm.
over Twitter or LinkedIn or just like because of a mutual admiration of each other's work. I mean, we have a weird
Hmm.
story because we literally met at Mass Art, but like
Yeah.
I was such an asshole at the time that I like was oblivious. My whole like MO was just like all designers are competition. I have to be the best.
Yeah.
I'm gonna crush
Yeah.
everyone. Like typical like macho asshole. And that's like not who I am as a person. But
Yeah.
and then you reached out to me like years later and was like, hey, we actually met
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we just
Go
kindled a
ahead. Sorry.
friendship that way. But like I think I'm interpreting the story right. That's the story, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, we went to mass art together. Oh my gosh, what class was it? John Howery's type
Mm,
class.
yeah.
I learned so much in that class though. I still consider him my favorite professor to
Mm,
date. Like he pushed us, Like he pushed us to try different things, but also really get technical and like, yeah, I feel like because of him, I nerd out over type now.
we're, we'll definitely come back to nerding out over type.
Yes,
I
yes.
think that he was a fantastic professor, and I don't like teachers that baby you because you
Yeah,
kind of gotta get pushed around a little bit or like
yeah.
have some type of villain in a way. This is kind of how I see like the world in some regard, but and I think
Mhm,
it's actually like a boxing metaphor. I don't remember which boxing coach said it, but you have to have someone who is better than you that you're
mhm,
aspiring to defeat. So like
mhm,
insert that into your life. You have to have people that are on par with you that keep you like motivated to keep going because you don't want them to get better than you and beat you. And
mhm,
then you got to have someone that you teach. And so that you're kind of translating the ideas that you already know down to someone who needs that kind of feedback. And it makes
mhm.
you better at what you do because you're able to teach them. So shout out the person who has this quote kind of like translating now. But I do think that it's an incredible kind of methodology for keeping yourself always learning and training and getting better. Um,
Mhm.
Do you have someone that you're aspiring to get as good at? I know that I have examples, and then I definitely have people that I think that I'm like on par with, but then depending on the day, I'm like, they're so much better than me. What am I?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, I'm actually really happy you mentioned this because I think this is a mindset in
Mm,
and of itself, right? If you're always, but it's also easy to get stuck kind of like teetering on one side too, right? Like, yeah, you need people to aspire to be like, but at the same time, knowing like, okay, I've learned a lot. I should pass this on for the next person because I needed that at the time too. Right now, I'm really inspired by and aspiring to be like these two studios, one of which is Ingrid Piquignol Studio,
mm.
and the other is Violin and Jeremy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with either of them. Their craft is so dialed in, and I feel like every project that they produce, I'm like, damn. Like I just like it gives you that feeling of like, I wish I did that, or like I wish I thought of that, or I think that is like the essence of being a creative is like you
Hmm.
should, always be aspiring. And like if you're having that feeling about someone's work, like follow that,
Hmm.
follow it, honor it, and like keep pushing because it really is just a practice.
Hmm.
And we only get to be as good as we are by the act of like through the act of repetition. When I was in college, when I was in grade school, high school, like I did not consider myself good by any means. Like I was a very average art student, but because I just kept practicing, over time you get better and better. So yeah, you need people to aspire to because it helps you keep going.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that's very like thank you for being like transparent. I think literally when I was at Mass Art, I had a teacher, Lynn, and
Mm,
I brought in like my first assignment of like the class. I don't know, it was like design 101, whatever the hell it was. And she was like,
mhm.
this is terrible. The craft is shit. She's
Mm.
like, this is one of the worst things that someone's brought in.
And meanwhile, your poor ego is just like, okay,
I was just
should I even pursue this?
the part of me was just like, we're playing with fucking glue sticks and bullshit in our backpacks. Like, what the fuck do you want? But then the other part of me was just like, I'm gonna show her. And
Yeah.
and I think the thing is just like the Chumbawamba song, you get knocked down, you get up again. Don't let
You're
anything.
never gonna knock me down.
Yeah, just keep getting back up because there's always going to be someone quote unquote better than you, and there's always going to be
Hmm.
someone who's looking up to you thinking, oh, I can't wait to be that, or how do I
Hmm.
get to be as good as that?
Hmm.
And I mean, I think the biggest thing that most creatives struggle with is this like sense of imposter syndrome and aspiring to be like their heroes. So this will be a twofold question. What do you
Hmm.
tell yourself when you feel imposter syndrome? And two, it's funny how when we try to be like someone else, it always ends up looking nothing like them and looking like something new. So I'm curious about how you evolve work that you're aspiring to be like. So we can start in any direction, either imposter syndrome or creating things that are unique to you. I'll let you choose.
I think let's start with imposter syndrome because this is a big one. This has been a big one for me. I think the way in which I have learned to reframe when I'm starting to feel that way is everyone feels this way at
Mm-hmm.
some point, and it's usually a sign that like you're growing into the next version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So like lean in, just like feel the feelings and then
Mm-hmm.
remind yourself who the fuck you are. Like the opportunity or the door didn't open for no reason. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's there because it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be there, right? You're supposed to be in that weird like, oh shit, are you sure you want You want me? You want to?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure I'm the one? Are you sure? Like I feel that all the time, but I try to remind myself everybody feels that way, and the people that then reach the next level, it's because they've learned to reframe it and not let that voice get too loud. Yeah. But it's practice. It really is practice. And each time you feel it, it is either going to be amplified or it's going to mean something different to you. And I think that's a really nice opportunity to get introspective and like, if it means having to work through old limiting beliefs when you were growing up or younger, like then definitely do it because otherwise you'll just kind of you could easily find yourself getting kind of stuck in this repeating pattern with those thoughts, and that ultimately is what is going to hold you back.
Yeah, it's this constant need to do the inner work, working on
Hmm.
yourself, plus managing like your physical growth of your skills. And they have to kind of go in tandem. You can't reach that higher level of work skill or happiness in a way, that work
Hmm.
happiness, without
Hmm.
kind of doing like the inner work to get to that next state of being, that like level up moment.
Hmm.
I actually was just talking to my developer Nathan about this the other day
Hmm.
because we were talking about like the future of our work relationship, and I had mentioned like, oh, there was a part during like the creation of the new Rogue site where like I didn't know if you were like on board with what we were trying to do. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I can understand how you would feel that way." But it was getting to the point where I was getting that kind of teeter-totter back and forth. Like I was coming up with so many random new ideas and working like, dozens of extra hours creating designs that were no significant amount better than
Hmm.
what I had done like months ago. So it was just slowing us all down and it was just useless work. So basically, he was just like, shut up, let's push it live. If you don't like it in a month, we'll fix it. And
Hmm.
it like having a figure in your life, whether it's a spouse or a significant other, a friend, whoever that is, maybe you just have to talk to yourself because you're in your room for 10 hours alone a day.
Hmm.
Whoever it needs to be, like sometimes you got to tell yourself to shut up and push it into the world and then see
Yeah.
what people think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that hits home. I think, yeah, perfectionism is
Mm,
often just us, like, coming up with reasons that it's not good enough.
mm-hmm.
And in reality, it is good enough. If it needs to evolve, it'll evolve. There's always time to revisit and reiterate things, but yeah, I feel that. Even like it still happens to me sometimes. I'll like, post content on like LinkedIn or Instagram, and I'm like, oh my God, the animation, it's not good. It's not, like stupid little things that no one notices, but you do. And
Yeah.
it's a way to, yeah, to hold yourself back, to like to essentially just like, the non-starter self-starter thing where,
Mm-hmm.
well, if it's not good enough, I'm not launching it. But
Yeah.
then it's never gonna get launched, just
Mhm.
launch it. And who knows, in 6 months you might be like, you know what, yeah, that's fucking good, I like that.
Yeah. That's the
That's
thing.
good.
Sometimes you look back and you're like, oh wow, I was just so mean to myself. Or
Yeah.
you look back in 6 months and you're like, wow, look at the exponential progress that I've made.
Yeah.
It's nice having that kind of visual archive in a way to kind of look back and reflect. Because every once in a while I'll do that and just kind of scroll through the hundreds of things that I've posted on like Dribble. That's kind of why I use Dribble. It's just like, oh, let's see what I used to do compared to now. And
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
exponentially different, which
Hmm.
kind of brings me to that other point where like having that archive of work kind of shows like, oh, what you were into back then versus now. And like, your references and your inspiration. And
Hmm.
it's interesting, at least I think, how it always kind of looks different than the work that you're trying to mimic in a way. And my
Hmm.
hunch is that it's because you end up throwing like 20 other influences that you either already had or are also trying to mimic in a way. and they
Mm-hmm.
all come together and form this like potato salad of newness, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I always try to do my due diligence and not, copying others, but looking up to and then like putting my own twist on it. And I think it's because of each person's unique experience, personality, individuality, like that inherently comes across in every project. I think, yeah, I think my process is almost like a kitchen sink approach where I'm like, oh, I like this. Like put it all together. Does it make sense? And if it doesn't, then it's like get rid of some things. Like that was a little too sweet or that was a little too salty.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I I have no reference to like kind of like explaining creative work other than like food most of the time because it
Yeah,
is kind of
yeah.
like it's like visual cooking in a way.
Yeah, yeah. For me, so much of it though is like intuition. And I know that's incredibly hard as a creative to like sell
Mhm.
through, right? Like when you're trying to pitch work, when you're working with a client, I think the last thing they want to hear is like, it just felt right. But but so much of it really is perception. We
Mm,
are we are helping people essentially be perceived in a certain way to
mhm,
then attract the right people that will then buy, that will then become loyal, brand followers. And all of that comes down to human emotion and perception and experience. So a lot of it is intuition. And yeah, just kind of like an amalgamation of spices and sweetness and putting it all together and I like to look at it through the lens of like, yeah, I would buy into this. I feel like I resonate with it.
well, that you bring up a really kind of valid point because the way that I always have kind of looked at design and business and marketing in general is I feel like different than other marketers in some way where it's like most of humans are kind of simple. We're very much like emotion driven beings and
Hmm.
there's like an inherent value for something to be beautiful. Like if it's beautiful and kind of different and kind of weird and kind of interesting, like people are going to gravitate towards it. So like the idea of making something that is like the same as something else, like literally doesn't compute in my brain because it's like it's already been done. Why would you want that? Like,
Yeah, yeah. That's what's so fascinating to me about design trends, and we're definitely in a trend right now. I think with this like positioning for Gen Z,
yeah.
right? Like I think I hope I say that, and to those listening and to you, like I'm sure you immediately like, yep, I see it. I see the trend. I see the design trend. Like as you say that, um, yeah, people like novelty.
Hmm.
People like novelty, but I think at the same time there does need to be some sense of familiarity or like maybe nostalgia in a sense of like, oh, that feels kind of familiar, but what is it? Like there's
Hmm.
something about it that I've never seen before. And like that's contagious, I think. I think like a maybe a prime example is, I mean, probably the reason why, Graza olive oil came to
Mm,
be so big because it's such a simple idea, right? Like we're gonna put olive oil in these plastic squeezable bottles that subconsciously, on some level, we've all interacted with already, just not in that way. It just has never
mhm,
looked or behaved that way. But like, right, I'm thinking of so when I was younger, I used to work in this mom and pop shop making pizzas, and they
mhm,
had those squeezable
mhm,
olive oil bottles. And so it like subconsciously it brings you back to like, yes, I've done that before. That feels very familiar. But I've never seen this weird illustration and green packaging. That's
mhm.
cool. I like that. I'm gonna buy it. Like it's a yeah, that mix of like familiarity and novelty done just right, I think gets people really excited and curious, and then they want to interact with it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because it's like it's the only like plastic in the olive oil section or like whatever
Hmm.
the material is. Maybe it's eco plastic, I'm not sure, but
Hmm.
um yeah, like you mentioning like the pizza shop example or the local mom and pop shop, it made me think of that too. I'm like, yeah, this is what every chef has on their station. It's like it's
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
natural, but slapping on like these amazingly fun illustrations, being able to see the olive oil actually is like really
Mhm.
nice for a change.
Mhm.
It's so clear. Yeah, I guess shout out to Gander. Those guys
Yeah.
are amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they've found the sweet spot. Their work is I've looked up to them quite a bit, and they really have got a niche for, kind of category defining brands, if you
Mm-hmm.
will.
Yeah, maybe that is the a good example of niching down because I think most of their work is branding for food products and then they bring that into the digital world and kind of
Mhm.
partner with brands in that way. So maybe
Mhm.
that's like a type of vertical and plus I imagine they only take projects where they're doing the brand all the way into kind of completion so that they have
Mhm.
all the touch points aligned. So I mean,
Mhm.
like it could be a something like that where you always have the creative freedom. It doesn't have to be like, I guess, uh, construction companies. It could be like the food service industry, but we
Mhm.
do branding and carry it all the way through. So
Mhm.
yeah, I do think that niching is still super challenging, and you have to have the right the right product or service, the right person in the right time. So it's like those three elements in
Mhm.
combination and harmony, I guess.
I think the right time is a bigger factor than people realize too.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm thinking now just in terms of how, the landscape is kind of changing, kind of evolving. Um, right? Maybe now it's maybe not the best time to niche in certain industries because they're just not doing well, right? And gosh, coming back to the wave analogy, it's like
Yeah.
learn to notice the wave, learn to notice when the wave is coming, and then just start paddling.
Hmm.
You know, yeah. So there's a case, yeah, niching when done right in the context of what you said, time. What else did you
I said
say?
right person, right project, right time, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. You need all three.
Mm.
And then you just it's a repetitive process. And then you become so well known for that, like Andrew.
Yeah, they really have like nailed it. I mean, like I don't think food will ever not be there. So if
Mhm,
like you're out there thinking about things like what are industries that can't go away because they've been around for like 10,000 years? Like,
mhm,
well, maybe not 10,000 years, but close to it. But yeah, I mean, like there's certain industries that'll always be there, like certain hospitality or certain food service industries, and we need those. And I think they're comforting and the things that make neighborhoods beautiful and unique, restaurants, little local shops. Like without those, like what's really the joy of, of living?
yeah, yeah. Oh, for real. I'm such a person that I get so much joy from, like, shared experience, especially when it comes to food. Like, there's something
Hmm.
so magical about sitting down together and, like, sharing a bunch of plates or cooking a meal together and then sharing a meal together. Like, there's something so special about that. I think that's innately human. People appreciate that kind of thing. That's never gonna go away.
Yeah, like I feel like there would be almost no joy in walking into a coffee shop and having like it all be automated with robots. That would just be
Mm,
so
mhm,
lame and kind of like destroy
mhm.
like the culture. I love that
Yeah.
like coffee shop culture when it was starting in like the Enlightenment period. It was like men only places they could hang out to escape their wives, and all the women tried to get coffee shops outlawed
Oh
because
my gosh.
they thought it was like irreverent places of gossip, and then basically they just made the king. I think at the time was just like no, oh no, the king wanted it outlawed too. This is the story, and if I got it
Mm.
wrong, oh well. The king wanted it outlawed as well because they were talking about him. So
Mm.
it was the king plus women, like we're on the same side in that regard. And then basically they just opened coffee shops up to women, and it just became like a thing forever.
That's
So
so funny. Wow. Yeah. Wow, history. There you go. Little,
Yeah,
little history lesson. We're just covering it all, folks.
yeah. A little bit of half-assed history. There we go. That's my other podcast I'll start up there.
Oh man, I wish I paid more attention in history class. It really would have done me some good. I learned enough, but yeah, I could have applied myself more then.
I think the things that I like, there's certain little pleasures. History, craft beer, coffee,
Mm,
now surfing and being out in nature. But my favorite history podcast is Hardcore History with Dan Carlin. And he just
mm,
goes on like 4 hour rants about like certain topics in history. It really is incredible. He has an amazing like radio voice, and it's just so interesting because he makes all these connections to modern day and past kind of like historical events and how they kind of connect and kind of relate to culture
yeah,
at large. And I think the
yeah,
relating to culture at large is like definitely the most interesting piece. I get a lot of inspiration for web stuff, branding stuff from just like random bits of history, whether it was like historical pieces of design or even just like my goal with the jams of the week, for instance, is to try to make it look like a weird dusty record from like
yeah,
some bargain bin at like a record store. And it usually doesn't quite look like that because it's not like fully cohesive, but it turns into like trying to mimic that style and apply it in a way that is reflective of my skill set, which is not like creating hand typography and doing like amazing like fonts and all that. So I just try to use like what I have and then create something that like feels like the thing that I'm trying to mimic in a way where trying to create like a record cover, but with no ability to do like the amazing handmade type work that was done in like the 70s.
Oh my gosh, that's what Peter Sather's for. He's so good at that. Yeah, but your style, I feel like you do have a very distinct style because it is your own, or because you are drawing reference from the things that you enjoy and appreciate. And yeah, yeah, when I think of like gem of the week, it is, it's like a modern day, yeah, like a modern day archive of like records.
Oh yeah, that was the whole goal. And like my dream was that like people were gonna tune in each week and be excited about it. Maybe they
Hmm.
are. They haven't mentioned it, so if you do like it, we'll keep doing it. But um, ultimately, I was just like, I need a project that I can do that I'm excited about to promote new music that keeps me interested each week. And
Hmm.
it did turn into something that I am proud of. And I really like it when people come in and do things that are just so different than what I generally do. Like the ones that you've done
Hmm.
are all like so different than what I've kind of done because our styles are different. And when I pass it off to other people, they just like do like incredible things. I'm always like, wow, they should all look like that. But that wouldn't
Yeah,
be
yeah,
fun of it. They were the
yeah,
differentiation is what's cool about it.
yeah. And that's what makes, I think that's what makes each piece stand so strongly on its own because of the differences too, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, I
for
love
sure.
that.
But we've gone on a long journey away from the
Yes.
question. So, Libby, when
Oh
was
my
the last
gosh.
time you did something for the first time?
Oh, actually, I think I gotta come back to this theme of like making a big move.
Hmm.
This was the first time moving to Chicago was the first time that I really took a big leap like that and moved, halfway across the country, left my family, left so many of my friends, like really left the familiar behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I've since had this feeling of like, oh, I've got to do this again. Maybe not immediately, I'll
Mm-hmm.
be here for a few years, but it really has completely shifted my perspective on the world, myself, everything has changed, it feels like.
Do you think that because you went on a trip to Greece for a month, Do you think that that
Hmm.
was kind of like your training wheels version of it before making the move to Chicago? I don't remember how big of the difference in time it was.
Yeah, don't know, definitely. Yeah, I was in Greece in June of last year of 2022, and I was testing the waters to see, okay, would I either want to live abroad or would I want to, still make a big move, but be with people that I knew, or be in a bit more of a familiar territory, but still somewhere completely different. And although I loved Greece and I loved being there for a month, it is a very different experience to do it completely solo versus
Mhm.
having the shared experience of people that you know and love. Like it's so different. And I think had I chosen Greece, my life would look very differently. Or had I chosen, to be abroad on my
Mhm.
own, um, it'd be a very different experience. I would gain a lot, but I would be missing, I think, kind of the core element of like the shared experience that I was really craving, or I'm so happy that I have now.
With your travels to Greece, did you have a favorite standout moment that kind of made you know that you wanted to make this shift to Chicago, or maybe just a standout moment in
Oh,
general?
absolutely. I think Greece is one of my favorite places in the world. It's such a beautiful country, and I'm really fortunate and grateful that I was able to experience so much of it. Um, yeah, so I flew into Athens, I hopped around Santorini and Mykonos, went up to northern Greece, Thessaloniki, um, Kalabaka, and saw the monasteries. Like I really saw Greece. Um, there wasn't really a standout moment that made me realize that I wanted to that I decided to choose Chicago. It's really funny though because towards the end of the trip I was actually still feeling really conflicted on
Mm.
what decision I would make. And I just kind of said to myself, like, okay, I am meant to be here if I see a rainbow. Like something completely random. You know what I mean? Just like I needed a sign. I needed some sort of sign. And I didn't. But as soon as I landed back in Boston, there was this huge
Ah,
rainbow. And that was kind of like, okay, I have to stay here. I have to, I'm not meant to go there yet, you know?
never
Hmm.
know what the outcome is until you kind of take those grand leaps.
And oftentimes it might make no sense,
Mm.
right? Like I feel like I've made plenty of decisions that were really, strongly rooted in that feeling, that like intuition of like, it doesn't make sense, but I have to do it. And I think it comes back to like be open to, I forget where I first heard this, like be open to receiving a life that's better than you imagine. Because
Mm.
we're not meant to know so much, like there's only so much you can possibly dream above too. There is likely a path for you that you can't even see for yourself. But choosing to make decisions, I think rooted in intuition that you just know like, no, this is what's for me right now, can open up doors that you never even considered.
Yeah, intuition's definitely the perfect word for it. Trusting your
Yeah.
gut that it'll make the the right decision for you, whether you know it
Yeah.
at the moment or not.
Hmm. It always makes sense later too. Like I can even look back because let's on this time last year that I made the decision like, okay, it's gonna be Chicago. My lease
Mm.
was up at the end of October. I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm gonna find a place, I'm gonna move. Let's go. And even just a year has passed and I can already see like, oh, this was meant to happen so I could meet this person, so this could happen, and then that this would happen. Like, yeah, hindsight is 2020, but in
Mm.
the moment, and it's oftentimes I think I've been faced with a lot of uncertainty that then like 3 to 6 months later, you already had your aha moment. You're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Mhm.
I get it now.
Do you have a spot already picked out, or is it going to be kind of like a magical kind of surprise moment for your next transition?
For my next transition, I guess I've kind of been over time, what's the word? Like just gathering data, just
Mm-hmm.
going, visiting places and seeing how I feel there at the time. Um, I really love, so earlier this year, some friends and I went to Mexico City
Mm-hmm.
for kind of like a long weekend, and I just fell in love with that place. It was a place that I had never considered for
Mm-hmm.
myself, and I had never considered visiting until, they sort of brought it up, and they're like, "Oh, well, what if we went to Mexico City?" Like, you know, one of my friends had been there before, spoke really highly of it, um, and I was just kind of like, "Yeah, okay, let's go. That sounds like fun." Um, and yeah, that place really, really stole my heart for sure. So maybe let me like reverse like what's something that you wish was available to you when you were trying to like figure it out, or like what's something that you feel like you had to learn through a tough experience?
The hardest kind of thing and challenge, and it's a still kind of progressing thing that I deal with, is just the amount of knowledge that you have to kind of self-educate in order to be
Hmm.
a successful business person, a person who is an entrepreneur, is a leading a small team. So I mean, there's always like level up moments where if you want to be the business owner and the person who makes all the work, then that's a
Hmm.
conscious decision. If you want to have a team or work with freelancers, that's a conscious decision. And there's level up moments in your internal being as well as kind of the education that you have to do. You have to be able to guide a team and delegate. Delegating is probably one of the hardest things for me because I'm always like, no, I don't want to waste their time. I'll
Hmm.
just do it for them. And then it's just like, oh, you can't just do everything. You have to delegate so you can do the things that you're meant to do or that push the business forward. And it's
Hmm.
also a balance of getting clients with a budget that allows you to even hire people or delegate in the first place. So what are the things that you need to do or educate yourself to ask for those higher kind of ticket budgets or to attract clients with those budgets. So I think
Hmm.
the biggest challenge that I always face is how to find the right clients for Rogue and do that consistently. And it's the feast and famine cycle that is the scariest thing to me. And I think it's not so much feast and famine, but it's definitely like seasons, peaks and valleys a little bit, where
Hmm.
something always comes along, but it's not knowing when it'll come along in some cases. Things will be a little bit drier than others. And so the thing that I'm always constantly doing is marketing, talking about Rogue, and I dedicate a lot of time and energy to that so that we never try to stay stagnant and kind of fall off of people's kind of radar in a way. And I kind of view all of like the social channels as that kind of uh, radio wave antenna and tuning into people. And
Hmm.
just whether it's like creatives just trying to get our numbers up so that we can potentially come across someone's feed or channel in that way. And it's like sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, wow, being like famous would be great because then people would just know you and come to your website or hire you. It's like, damn.
Yeah.
But that's not what it's about. It's about making great work for great people. And then it's just everything else is finding those great people. So how to do that is the thing that I'm working through. Did that answer your
Hmm.
question?
Good. Definitely. Yeah, that answered my question. And so much of what you said resonated. I think both of us coming from a place where, we went to a fine art school. We don't have the formal business background of what it actually means to run a
Mhm.
service-based business. Um, it's a constant self-education to, yeah, to keep leveling up, to know enough to have the business sense of like, okay, yeah, well, if I want to work with other people, I need to be charging, I need to be attracting the right clients to charge
Mhm.
enough to bring people on board so that I can, you know, then dedicate more time to myself to like be more of that director role versus like
Mhm.
doing. Um, I find it incredibly challenging or it's very hard to, dedicate time to business development and doing the work at the same time. It is
Mhm.
so, and I think a lot of creatives that either are practicing independently or have in the past will resonate with that too, and have, kind of reaffirmed like, yeah, it's kind of one or the other. If you really want to do it well, if you want to really get good at your craft and like really hone your craft and like be known as a really technically sound designer, that's a very different, yeah, that's a decision versus like, I want to run a studio. That's a very different decision.
Mhm.
And it's just challenging to do both. And you kind of have to you always have to be learning. And
Yeah.
yeah, you will constantly meet yourself at your limit when it's time for the next level up, I guess. Right?
Mhm.
Because you spend so much time with yourself. I know we've had similar conversations in the past of, I think, what's needed to be, a successful, I guess, solopreneur in the creative, in any industry is like you really need to take care of yourself. You really need to know yourself and seek outside support when you need it.
Yeah.
Um, your business will only grow as much as you are willing to grow and meet yourself.
Sometimes taking that leap in whether that's hiring a mentor, a coach, buying a book,
Hmm.
buying a course, and
Hmm.
I know that you have a cool project coming out, and if you want to take an opportunity to talk about some of the new things on that you're brewing up, Libby,
Yeah, I'd love to. Shamelessly plug myself.
as you should.
But I'm will soon be rolling out some creative mentorship courses. I think initially want to keep these one-on-one. I feel like that's where I can really provide the most value, but really reaching a point in my career where I want to give back
Mhm.
to other creatives that are just trying to figure it out like we are, and really pass down like all of the knowledge that I've learned, all the knowledge I've gained since deciding to go freelance, and how my evolution of, starting as a freelancer into really the mindset shift of now being, oh, I'm a creative entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. Um, yeah, everything from how to scope and price projects to attracting your dream clients to I think a big one is like learning to say no,
Oh,
and really, yeah, really only saying yes to the things that light you up and lead to the next really cool project. But yeah, that will be rolling out very soon, so stay tuned. um, I guess follow me on Instagram at Studio Libby Connolly. I'll be posting updates there pretty regularly, or find me on LinkedIn, Libby Connolly. But yeah, exciting things to come.
I'm gonna go a step further. I'm gonna hype you up a little bit more than you even just did. But for anyone who doesn't know, Libby and I have worked together. We worked together on the Zaza project that Rogue did and released.
Mm,
You were the lead brand design and probably a fair bit of strategy as well. And then we also worked together on Home, the
mhm,
wellness brand, and we've been trying to figure out other opportunities to work together as well. But I'd say the biggest thing that I've learned from you, Libby, is just like personal work boundaries. And you
mhm,
are very strong with your boundaries because I've reached out to you for little bullshit tasks probably, or just like little things, and you've just been like, no, Britton, I that's not something that I do. You can probably find someone better for that particular thing, whether it's like a little
mhm,
illustration collaboration or like coming in on part of a project. You're like, no, I
Hmm.
do brands from start to finish kind of thing, or like a
Hmm.
piece of a brand. So one, that's probably something that could go into your mentorship class because you are very good at boundaries. I think that's a beautiful thing that we all need to do more is be our own kind of bodyguard in a way against our own kind of people pleaser brains in the service industry. I think the other thing is that you do a very clear and good job at breaking down your pricing. And as a studio owner who does leverage freelancers as a huge part of the business, and kind of knowing my skill set, which is like the web design part, but I love the branding stuff so much. I just try to partner with people to do the amazing visual application and tackle the strategy stuff, and then
Hmm.
kind of leveraging like that creative collaboration. You do a fantastic job, not only at the strategy side, but the visual execution and translating your ideas and reasoning to clients. So definitely, if you are interested in kick-ass branding and trying to level up your ability to price and how to work with either agencies or clients, definitely Libby will be a fantastic resource and guide you to a fantastic destination. So I'll let you figure out all of like the pricing and how you do that. But just wanted to hype you up a little bit more. It's definitely worth it. And that sounds like an incredible resource.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
Another like a central theme of just like the work that, well, I guess not the work, but like what you talk about on social media is about vulnerability in the kind of
Mm,
creative space and sharing that. So if you are interested on LinkedIn, Libby has
mm.
shared like a 3-year breakdown of like financials plus like a bunch of other mindset shifts and resources. Do you mind talking a little bit about that, Libby, and about what your kind of thought process
Yeah,
for creating that
yeah,
was?
I'd love to. I'd love to. So, um, February of this past year, February 2023, marked my sort of 3-year anniversary of going independent. And I'm not quite sure where the idea, well, actually, no, I'm actually very sure where the idea came from. I really admired and looked up to Gardner
Mm,
NYC's.
yeah.
They did kind of like an annual synopsis of, yeah, I mean, a very transparent breakdown of like their business from year to year. And he first released, like a 6-month breakdown. Um, Again, like very transparent, very honest, and was really reflective and like, okay, here's what I learned, here's what didn't work, here's what I want to do more of in the next 6 months. Um, and I had never seen something like that before. I had never seen something so transparent and so honest, and just felt really inspired to kind of continue to pay it forward in that respect because I know
Mm,
I gained so much clarity and yeah, just so much clarity and confidence from seeing that to be like, okay, this is such a clear breakdown, such a clear roadmap. Like I can see how I could do this. Um, so he was a big inspiration for me. Haraf, the as another studio that when they closed shop, they released everything
mm,
um,
mhm,
from pitches to every product they've ever priced and how much and what kind of project it was. Um, I love seeing things like that. I think the industry needs more of it because it is a very, kind of smoke and mirrors show when it comes to how we're pricing projects and um, how we're winning projects. There's so much that happens behind the scenes when, in sales calls and sales conversations that is not talked about. And so yeah, my 3-year review, I called it the first 3 years, um, is essentially my version of that. And what I felt that I hadn't seen from other studios before was that really personal side of things. And although I do share, transparently pricing breakdowns, annual revenue and growth every year, I'm also still including me. in it, you know, like,
Mhm.
yeah, like you said, the mindset shifts that I had to go through, you know, I worked with a coach, I worked with a therapist, um, and it's you can really see kind of month to month and year to year, like what the big shifts were, like sort of what I was learning each year of growing my business, where I traveled, what I was eating, what I was reading, what I was listening to. Um, to me, everything is so interlinked, and I like to think that, you know, whether you're a client or another creative, like working with me, you get all of me. It's not, you know, it's not a either or. It's a yeah, we're gonna jam out to Beyonce together. We're gonna
Nice.
celebrate the wins. We're gonna, you know, we'll reach those deadlines and we're gonna have fun doing it. Um, so yeah, a small contribution of just sharing transparency and vulnerability, I guess. And what a great practice. I had never done something like that before. And I feel like although it was, you know, for other people, for you know, to help other people in ways it was a really great practice for me too. To look back and really see like, damn, give yourself some credit. Like I never do, you know, I never do that. I'm
Yeah,
always like, okay, what's next? What's next? Like keep grinding, gotta keep
yep,
going.
yep.
Like we gotta do better next time. And
Oh,
to be so reflective and sit with it and really see it, I'm like, that's not nothing, you know, like you did a lot. Um, and it's there for everyone to see. That will always be a publicly facing resource for people.
beautiful. It is hard to slow down and appreciate those small wins and moments. So it is a good practice to actually just write it out. So if anyone wants to take a cue from Libby and start writing it out, I write in Notion. I copied actually Gardner's template and changed it a little bit. So I do like monthly recaps, like track
Hmm.
like finance numbers and wins and losses. And I don't do like percentages perhaps, but I do kind of like track all incoming projects and kind of where they came from. And so it's like very easy
Hmm.
to see. It's like, oh, okay. So no referrals. It's mainly from like dribble or winning like awards. So like it is helpful to
Hmm.
track your data. It's just a matter of what data applies to your specific business and how can you leverage it to make you more knowledgeable and ultimately help you to grow a little bit more every day, I guess, or every year.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think then that's just part of like the business side that you don't learn, right? And as a former art school student, um, it's important to track those things though. I do something very similar. Like I kind of track like where my all my incoming leads are coming from. And
Mhm.
it's you should very clearly have understanding of where work is coming from. And you might not always know when, but you can have a pretty good idea just based on um yeah, looking at the numbers and being like, okay, well this month like this happened or like we won this award.
Mhm.
So we got some publicity and then we had people reach out from that kind of thing. Um yeah, it's helpful to see. It uh, can paint a very clear picture of what's working and what's not.
Exactly, yeah. And one thing that we started doing recently is um it's just like a fun, easy thing to do. It's just like scheduling some time with a with a kind of client as you are finishing a project, and then just kind of having a recap of like what the value of working with, so in this case, Studio Libby or Rogue Studio, like what was the value, and just like having like a little Q&A kind of chat, and just like recording it,
Mhm.
like a simple, you know,
Mm.
Zoom or Google Meet or anything, and then you just have like a case study. It's like you don't have to bother them for like quotes or anything. You can just like send people the video file and clean it up a little bit or throw it on YouTube, and then it's just social
Mhm.
proof. So that's something that I think is
Mm.
easy that people can take away and start doing and leverage is when you have a great successful project, just have a little Q&A of why it was successful and share it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that easy. I like the way you do it. That's very different. Yeah, I feel like I'm more of a I'll follow up maybe a few months after a project ends,
Mm,
or like a month after a project ends, and just kind of like, hey, how'd that go for you? And that's important. It's important
yeah.
to be, collecting feedback, and at the end of a project whether it went well or not.
Hmm.
It goes back to that gut feeling of like, yeah, that was kind of a struggle. Like I wonder, why. And it's helpful to, if not have a conversation with the person, then at least do the introspection on your end to kind of uncover like, okay, well, this didn't go so well. Was that, it's a two-way street. You
Yeah.
can't, you can never place all the blame on a client, even if they are non-communicative or indecisive. Like, you're there to guide them. So
Hmm.
it is instant feedback of like, okay, where do I need to get better then? If that wasn't a complete home run, then like what do I need to improve so that next time it is?
Sure. Absolutely. And that's the growing level up moments. And again, if
Hmm.
you need guidance on that, Libby is your gal and she can walk you through that when she's ready to open the program.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait. It's gonna be spectacular. I'm excited.
As we're kind of winding down here a little bit, we've been chatting for almost 2 hours. So I wanted to ask you some fast and furious questions, but I wanted to start with a little game.
I
So,
love games. This is great.
yeah,
I love games.
so I wanted to play Fuck, Mary Kill with you, but for
Okay.
typefaces. If you had to
Ooh.
choose a typeface to Fuck, Mary Kill, which three would you choose? And then we can maybe ask why. Because you said you wanted to nerd out about type, so we can play a little type game.
Ooh. Oh, first off, great game. This is my favorite game. Um, oh, that is tough. Okay. This is gonna cause, I think, some controversy for a lot of people, but you know what? I'm being honest. Okay, I think let's do Helvetica.
Mm,
Okay, okay. Fuck Mary Kill. So I'm gonna marry Soul Display. I am obsessed with that typeface. Um, obsessed and want to keep it around. It's not
mhm.
just a one time, not just a
Yeah.
one time thing. Um, I'll fuck Canella. I do love her, but you know, every once in a while,
Hmm.
it's fun to play around. I'm sorry, I'm gonna kill Helvetica. I'm gonna do it.
I
I'm
like
gonna
it.
do it.
I like it.
But I feel like that's a direct correlation to like my style too.
Mm,
Like,
mhm.
other people are gonna have very different answers, but yeah, I'm sorry. I'm gonna kill Helvetica. I appreciate Helvetica, but he's done. He's
Yeah,
done.
instead. Uh, I'm okay with killing Helvetica for sure. Uh, there's a million variants of Helvetica with more characters, so choose one of those if you want to spice
Yeah.
things up. Yeah.
At least do Helvetica Noia. Like, at
Yeah,
least do that one.
exactly. If I were to go,
Yeah, yeah,
I
I'm curious.
I'm a little bit. I kind of just use whatever Pangram is making most of the
Oh,
time.
yeah. No,
Um,
they're great. I love all of their typefaces.
yeah. So I that's like always like if I'm looking for type, I just go there first. And then the other type studio I go to all the time is Power Type. So shout out to both of those.
Oh,
I'm gonna go with Druck and
oh,
because I love
wow.
Druck, but I think I would kill Druck.
Okay.
I'm going to fuck Dragon, which just sounds crazy. Anyone who's listening, this is not a mythical BD like podcast.
BDSM with
Yeah,
dragons.
yeah, that's not what this is, but you can do whatever you want with that visual. And then I'm gonna marry Swear because it has like a lot of different
Mm,
sides to it and personality from the italic
mm,
to Kaladi version. So that's what I'm gonna choose. But I'm going to kill Druck because
mm,
it was an evolution of our old typeface, but I've been kind of seeing it a ton recently. And
Hmm.
I think for that reason, I think that it will always stand the test of time, but it's getting overdone at this season in design. So I think that we can look towards other typefaces of that style, that super condensed and chunky, and just do
Hmm.
alternatives. So I'm going to say Kildruck, even though it's a typeface that I literally just used on the Rogue site. But for that reason, I'm going to go with that order.
I can respect that. I can respect that. I've used Druck for a few, well, not a few. I think just no, yeah, two projects recently. But yeah, I agree. It's I think it's had its moment.
Hmm.
We can all appreciate, but I think we've got to move on.
Yeah.
We got to move on to the next.
So
What's it
no
gonna be?
Helvetica.
What do you do you ever do like try to do like forecasting on like what typeface is gonna be the next like big typeface, right? Because I mean it happened. I feel like yeah, Druck was one. Canella's definitely one. I feel like I see Canella everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pangram though, they're on the up and up. I love everything they release.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Yeah, honestly,
Mm,
it would probably be one of their stuff. Recently,
yeah.
recently, it's funny because I thought that it wasn't trendy, but for Lens, we did a pixel typeface, and
Oh yes.
and I like didn't realize, but that's like a trend. There's pixel typefaces everywhere. It was literally like the point of
Yeah.
it was that we were trying to call back old school digital publication, like really
Yeah.
old school font for like a very specific reason, trying to marry like physical publishing and digital publishing together. And and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, there's digital pixely typefaces everywhere. I don't want this to be like a trend at this moment in time when I
Yeah.
release this
Yeah.
brand. But
I see it a lot in like the AI space too. There've been a
hmm
lot of or like Web3. There've been
hmm
a lot of companies have started to use that like pixelated or a variation of like a pixelated typeface, which makes sense for the space, but it's like how can we push it, guys?
hmm
Let's bring some innovation to a really innovative space, you know?
exactly. I think that the AI space is feeling a little bit homogenous right now. And sorry, I mean the web
Hmm.
space. It
Hmm.
seems like a lot of like design studios are copying each other's type of styles for that stuff. Um, when
Hmm.
when I feel like you have the literally a blank canvas to do anything with a lot of those projects. So,
Hmm.
and I guess guys out there, gals out there, whoever out there, uh, you can push it. If you're doing a Web3 project,
Yeah.
yeah,
Go all out. Well, that's the space to really do it. I feel like one studio that's doing it really well. Have you heard of Pool Suite?
I haven't, no.
Oh, they're super cool. They've got like an aesthetic all there. I think they lightly lean into this kind of like pixelated or like uh how do I describe it? Not pixelated.
I'm gonna check it out. Check out Pool Suite.
Yeah, no, they've got a very cool vibe. Poolsuite.net.
Poolsuite.net.
For all those listening,
Yeah.
poolsuite.net.
Yeah, we're not afraid to shout out other people. Other people are doing great stuff.
No, other people are doing cool stuff. Yeah,
Definitely.
that's we're collaboration over competition. We
Mm,
are a prime example of we went to art school together and like a
mhm,
pretty competitive art school, I would say.
mhm. Yeah.
And then years later, reconnected and we're like, you know what? Let's work together.
Yes.
There is so much more room for collaboration than competition. I think
Definitely.
that's a huge um I'm seeing the shift though in our industry. I am seeing a shift, but it is this like mentality of like you got to be the best because you want to win the most work, but like it has so much more to do with being a right fit for a business than it does with who's better than who and like who has more talent. Like it really comes down to right fit. And that's a mindset shift that I think we both had to kind of, you know, come to on our own terms.
Definitely. Again, it's like right person, right project, right time.
Right time. Yeah. Yeah, that's the magic.
And like right person can be applied like right studio, right blending of people. So it's not necessarily like just that person. Like we only want to work with you because you're you. Like, and that's a great place to be if you have that. But ultimately, a lot of people will hire you because they like your work and they like you more than even like your work itself. It's like, oh, you can do the job
Mm-hmm.
great, and I really like you and want to talk to you each week. Awesome. Yeah. Sign
Yeah.
me up.
Yeah. That should be the qualifier, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
The qualifier should be, do I like this person?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to spend this much time with this person? Would we resolve conflict well together? Would we communicate well? Those are big criteria when considering a project.
For sure. Yeah, definitely if there's like red flags of if they're like pushy or aggressive and you're not that type of person, take note of that stuff. Like if they're
Mm-hmm.
immediately like fighting you on budget and want to get it down, like huge red flag.
Mm-hmm.
If they have no idea what if they're entering the industry and don't have a lot of experience at all, that's probably a red flag because you don't want the project to die instantly after launch or them to
Mm-hmm.
run out of budget.
Mm-hmm.
What other red flags do you think you've learned or seen, Libby?
I mean, those are big ones. Let me think. I feel like communication style, definitely.
Mm.
Um, oh, timeline. Yeah.
That's
Never try to, if you feel like you're compromising before things have already started, that's a red flag.
yeah.
It's like relationships. It's like
Hmm.
they have to be able to meet you where you're at. And some compromise is okay if if they have maybe a bit of a tighter deadline than you normally would work for, but you're like, you know what, like I really like you, I like this project, like I believe in this. That's okay. If you're cutting your timeline in half, that seems like maybe a bit of a too much of a compromise. Um, yeah, it's like relationships.
Yeah, it really is. That's why I think when people say like business isn't personal, that it's very silly because
It's
there's,
all personal.
yeah,
Yeah.
everything's personal.
Yeah.
Work and life, I think instead of work-life balance, sometimes I think of like work-life integration and how to make it all just like blend together. I love my job. I love the things that I do outside of work. And it's like just making
Hmm.
sure I'm getting enough of each thing in the right amounts, I guess. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like that phrase. I should start using that more. Because it really is, I mean, balance is defined so differently by each person too.
mhm.
And yeah, it's more a question of like, are you getting filled up by the right amount of things
Mhm.
each day, each week, each month, each year? And if something feels off, then where do you need to make adjustments?
Yeah. 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 It really is different per person because you could work 10 hours a day and also have like an incredible like social life and like be doing your hobbies and it all works perfectly. Or you could be working
Hmm.
like 5 hours a day and like do nothing but watch Netflix and you're unhappy. So like what is
Hmm.
the balance of all the things that you are doing that bring you joy and fill you up and make life worth living?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's that simple. It's that simple.
Hopefully.
But
Yeah.
it takes intention, it takes practice.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
the over time it all comes. Wow, we just got real deep. I was not expecting this to go in this trajectory, but I love it.
What's your biggest failure and what did it teach you?
My biggest failure.
And just to
Hmm.
preface that, I think failure is the greatest learning opportunity, and we should celebrate our failures as much as we do our wins because
Yeah,
we have to learn from it, we have to evolve and grow. So
yeah.
with that
I
context, I think people might be like, wow, he's a bully.
No, no, no. I see it the same way. Like failures are lessons. Um, oh, that's a great question. I'm trying to think. There are a few things that kind of stick out in my mind. I think the biggest failure or lesson that I really had to learn, and I guess thankfully earlier on in my career, was boundaries.
Mm,
Was prior to being independent, I was not good at speaking my needs and honoring my needs. I was very much a people pleaser, and I said
Yeah.
yes to a lot of stuff out of fear that I would let people down, or I would be perceived as not a good person or a agreeable person that like wants to help out when needed. And I ended up really overcompromising and really burning myself out because I couldn't say no. And
Mhm.
once I finally did learn how to say no, it a lot shit. And I learned how to say no, and nothing bad happened, right? Like
Mhm.
saying no actually meant I had, you know, I opened up more time for myself, and I wasn't resentful towards people. Um, a lot shifted when I learned to say no, and it was uncomfortable at first. It was really uncomfortable, um, but learning how to set healthy boundaries and clearly communicating your expectations and needs up front um, is a game changer.
And how did you make that shift in your business to communicate your needs kind of upfront? Was it like a contract thing or like a terms and conditions thing?
Honestly, it happened slowly. I feel like this work I initially learned in therapy.
Mm,
I, yeah, this wasn't even through a business context. This was purely a personal context at first, and it really kind of made me hold up a mirror to every single relationship in my life and you know see like wow look at all these instances in which like you're not honoring yourself, you know, you're not honoring your needs. And over time, the therapist I was working with at the time, Katie, um, you know, just kind of reiterated like you might need to assert yourself in some situations. And I think it started out as, you know, me turning down projects and very intentionally saying uh, or not saying why, and just leaving it as like this is not a good fit for me at this time.
hmm
Like I can refer you on, I can, you know, or whatever. It started that way, and then I think now it manifests as you know, I'm very upfront in okay, this is the price, this is the timeline, this is the process. Does this work for you? And it's very much a take it or leave it
hmm
with some wiggle, you know, there's always a little bit of room for negotiation if it is the right fit,
hmm
but I'm still pretty firm on timeline, budget, process, and the right people show up when you are. It's
Yeah.
crazy. You get clear in what you want, and like bam, they all come to you.
They can't tell you what to do if you don't take the money. And on the
Yeah, yeah.
on like I guess like the flip side of saying no isn't being mean, it's just being honest. And it's also giving you the free calendar space to accept the project that's coming down the pipeline and is the right fit. So if you're not desperate and you're not starving, then
Hmm.
wait for the right opportunities because it's only right around the corner. And you have to
Hmm.
trust in the process yourself enough to believe that and just let it happen.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And positioning yourself.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt
Yeah.
to position yourself, you know, for those people to find you. But yes,
Yeah.
honoring your no, I think that was or continues to be a huge one for me. And even in those moments where, you know, the scarcity mindset kind of starts to creep back in, where I'm like, oh man, when is the next one coming in? It's always around the corner,
Yeah.
always.
Exactly.
It usually means you have to say no to something first. It's usually what happens. You get like one, I guess I call it like the test, you know, the test
Mm-hmm.
before the big thing comes through. That's
For
like,
sure.
you sure you want this? You want this little nugget? You don't know what's next, but like here's something small.
Yeah.
You could do, you know, like you could do this.
So a much more kind of easy one is, we'll see, we'll see. What is one book, movie, or show that has changed you?
Ooh, okay, I'm gonna go with movie. Have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Not yet.
I don't want to give away any spoilers. Yeah, it's too good. It is just like such a beautifully shot and directed, and like the message, it's yeah, it's just beautiful. I saw that movie and I bawled my eyes out like in the theater. I went with my best like one of my best friends, and I'm just sitting there like a baby, like wet. It's like my face is so wet from crying. Um, but it's so beautiful. I and then after after it was no longer in theaters, like I bought it instantly. I was like, I need this. I need to
Mhm.
watch this whenever I want to watch it,
There you go.
And I get something from it. I get something from it every time I watch it, or something new every time I watch it.
I do love that about like coming back to a book or a show or a podcast, you get, or a movie in this case, you get so much more out of it and you hear new things depending on like
Hmm.
where you are
Where
in
you
life.
are,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like certain things will just call out to you like a lightning strike where it's so like, I guess like defining in certain cases.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one for me, definitely. That it shot up to number one very
Mm.
quickly. Yeah, that doesn't happen often.
I'm gonna have to think about that question to see if I have one because right now I can't think of one. Um,
Could be book, yeah, could be book, could be, it doesn't have to be, or like honestly music too. I feel like there are certain songs where I'm like, oh damn, it just hits every time, like it,
yeah,
and it might hit a different way, but every time you're like, oh, it just like did something to my soul.
there's there's definitely music that has changed me in terms of like personality and kind of getting me into like genres at a as a whole. So like I used to listen to a lot of like classic rock from I guess like and then that got me into metal and then I was super into metal like from like 8th grade through like high
Mm,
school. And
same here.
and then there was a shift and it was funny because it was like a callback. I used to listen to the Beastie Boys with my brother when we were driving in the car, like when I was in like middle school and early high school, but I never was like a huge like fan. But then when I started in college, I listened to the Beastie Boys quite a bit, and that got me into like Kendrick Lamar and to a lot of hip hop. And now
Hmm.
I'm primarily listening to like a lot of hip hop and then like a lot of jazz because I used to listen to a lot of jazz because I played saxophone in jazz band in high school and it was just always
Hmm.
something I really loved. And I think it's the
Hmm.
connection between the two and the improvisation of
Hmm.
both that really kind of has piqued my interest. So I'm gonna say the Beastie Boys for kind of transitioning me out of my metal phase into my kind of current, I guess like genre agnostic, like loving everything kind of mentality now. Because the
Yeah,
Beastie Boys are a fusion of jazz, hip hop, rock, punk, and like literally
yeah,
everything.
yeah. They really are everything. Ooh, I like that. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. We have very similar music trajectory, I
Hmm.
guess. Yeah, it was like in middle school I was more of like I guess kind of like mainstream pop. And then yeah, probably around like 8th grade through yeah, probably through senior year, I really got into like metal, and I was kind of like a scene kid.
Oh yeah,
I was
classic.
kind of emo. I was kind of emo.
Well, you're
And
rocking
then
some
yeah,
black right now, still, Libby.
yeah. Just a black shirt. I
Where's
used to
your
dye my hair.
safari
I
shirt?
used to dye my hair black. My what?
Your safari
Oh, my
shirt.
safari shirt. Yeah, it's hanging up. It's in the closet.
You used to dye your hair
I've
black?
I've I used to, yeah. Oh yeah, I went deep for a minute there, but
Wow.
I crawled out. I crawled out. Um, yeah, and then I transitioned in back into that kind of like hip hop,
Mhm.
R&B. Yeah, also love jazz. My my grandmother was a big she played the piano
Oh,
a
nice.
bunch, and she was a big like jazz lover. And so I feel like that is just been passed down to me. So I love, yeah, I'd call myself genre agnostic. I kind of
Nice.
listen to everything now. Yeah.
Beautiful. And in the description will be Libby's playlist that she made for Rogue. So
Oh, hell yeah. Oh my gosh, I
yeah,
forgot about that.
yeah, full circle. So it's like
Oh, cool.
living or dead, who would you love to have lunch with?
Honestly, top of mind, or the person that keeps kind of shooting up the top is Lizzo.
Oh, hell yeah.
I love Lizzo. I don't know. She's just so cool. She's such an inspiration. And she's so real. Like
Hmm.
you can't, you know what I mean? Like you can't deny that. And I feel like I'm so happy that she is like seeing the limelight because there are so few people like her really centered and really admired and looked up to and like she knows it, you know. She's
Hmm.
not yeah, she's just so cool because she's doing something entirely her own. Like she is not trying to be anybody else. And like I respect the hell out of that.
Coming to a little bit of a close, being respectful of your time, Libby. We'll put all the links to social into the YouTube video and the kind of the show notes after the fact. But for the people listening, where can they find you online? And is there anything closing messages that you wanted to say?
Well, you can find me all over the web. I feel like I'm very findable. um, I'm at libbyconnolly.com. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm Libby Connolly, and on Instagram, my namesake Studio Libby Connolly. Gosh, closing words. Um, Believe in yourself.
Mm,
Believe in yourself, and you're halfway there.
yeah.
Yeah, you gotta see it before it happens,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you're halfway there.
I love that. And you have your creative mentorship membership coming out soon.
Yes,
And so be on the lookout for that.
I'll be teasing that. Yeah, I'll be teasing that for the next couple of weeks. TBD on an exact rollout date, but yeah, follow me on Instagram, Studio Libby Connolly, and you'll hear more on that shortly.
So in closing, remember that we are all legendary and have an amazing story of our own. So on the journey, take some time to be kind, grind, and unwind. And let's make the world a better and more creative place.
Oh, I love that. Oh,
Yeah,
cheers. Cheers.
yeah, cheers to that.
Oh, this was great. This was so fun.